We're here to talk about something that has almost disappeared from the landscape, both the way of life that it nourished and the physical structures, and that's the local Main Street movie theater. But as far as this immediate area began, it all really started in Camden, and this was Camden's first theater, known as the Temple, and it was used for a variety of theatrical activities, and toward the end there were some films shown in it. It's gone completely. It's where the post office stands now at 4th and Market. North Camden. Hardly anybody thinks about North Camden anymore. There was a time that there wasn't a bridge, and so it wasn't quite as split as it is today. But now the landmark, I think they're called, high-rises are in that area, and the Delaware Port Authority's taken over a lot of that ground. So the row homes are gone and the Elma's gone too. The North Camden on Main Street, down around 2nd, 3rd and Main, is still standing. Believe it or not, here's how it looks today. And when you take the Patco line over to Philadelphia, if you watch, you'll spot it. That's how it looked in its heyday, and this is how it looks today. It's now in use as a church. This you can remember, I'm sure, looking at least for some of you at the age of the audience. This was the Stanley in Camden, opened by the Stanley Company of America, and it was at Broadway and Market. This is pretty much how it looked when it opened in 1926. The original marquee was replaced by the 40s. It looked like that. The corner building, at least when I first started going to Camden, was a cigar and cigarette shop. This is how it looked when it finally was closed in the 60s. That's its fourth marquee. And this is how it looked the day the Wrecking Ball was taking it down. I was fortunate enough as a teenager to actually get to see quite a few stage shows there. And the Stanley also was in use a lot in the 40s because Philadelphia had blue laws and couldn't run their live shows on Sundays. So the big bands would come over to Camden on Sunday, and a lot of people got to see Dorsey and Glenn Miller and Sinatra and everything at the Stanley. I got to see all of the Alan Freed rock and roll shows there. On the opposite corner actually was a bank, and this is it there. When I first started frequenting the Savar Theater, it was Camden Trust. The building is still in use as a bank. It's now PNC, and the Savar is now the parking lot for the PNC Bank. This was quite an elaborate front, and the name came from Sarah Varbelow. Sarah was the mother of Sam Varbelow, who actually founded the Varbelow Circuit, later known as the Savar Corporation. Right over here where it looks like it says Dairy something now, was a restaurant, Calico Kitchen, which moved out to where the Point is at one time, and that's gone now. The Savar and the Stanley in the late 50s and 60s were really big date night venues. You know, you would go to your local theater often to see second-run movies because first-run movies played in Philadelphia. And after they played in Philadelphia for 6 weeks or so, they were allowed to come to Camden, where they would play for a couple of weeks before they would go to the first-run suburban houses, and then they would work their way down to the independent theaters like the Mount Ephraim, which became the Harwin, and the Blackwood, and so on down the pike. Down Broadway, just a couple blocks below where the Stanley and the Savar were, we had the Broadway. The Broadway was actually at Carmen Street. This is a corner here that isn't very clear. That's Carmen and Broadway. And today, the Rand Transportation Center's here. In fact, that block of Carmen Street is no longer there. It's part of the Rand Transportation Center. And you'll see that it features good entertainment and real comfort. Air conditioning was quite exciting in those days. It went in theaters. Today, almost everyone has it in their car and home, but you used to spend a lot of time in the theaters. Continuing down Broadway was the Grand, and the very famous Towers. The Towers dates back, actually, to the very early 1900s. And it kept opening and closing because it was a large venue, and it was a bit further down Broadway than people could easily walk coming in from the suburbs. But it was a very famous vaudeville house well into the 50s. This is the Princess Theater, also on Broadway, with its original marquee. And this is the Princess with the marquee you might remember. They kept updating the marquees so that they could get the title of the picture on it. Across the street was the Roxy, which is still standing and is today a church. The Princess is still standing, and I believe at the moment it's a used furniture store. This is the Lyric, further down going towards Kane, long gone. And the last theater before you come into the Fairview area was the Star, lovingly known as, spell it backwards, Rats. It incidentally is still standing. If you go down there, it still says the Star across the top too. It's now a boys club building. In East Camden was the Rio, an Art Deco theater, beautiful building. It is still standing and is presently used as a church. Also in East Camden, coming down Federal Street, was the Victoria. This was actually Sam Varbelow's very first theater, and it closed shortly after he opened a new, more modern theater a block away called the Arlo. The Liberty Theater on Mount Ephraim Avenue, pretty much as it looked in its heyday, and the Parkside on Haddon Avenue. And that building is still standing, and the Liberty is still standing. The Parkside was in use for a few years as a church. I'm not sure, I think it's totally empty now, and the Liberty is still part of a retail store. Actually, as you come out of Camden and you enter Pennsauken, we come to the Walt Whitman. Opened in 1927, and it was built where it was built, believe it or not, because the trolley tracks ended there. And they figured, well, it was easy to get to from the city as well as people living in the suburbs. This is how it looked the day it opened, which was June 1st, 1927. And it was a true loss when it went down because it was a gorgeous, ornate theater. This is the first floor lobby, and these are the openings into the auditorium. This is the balcony lobby. You would go up a grand marble staircase from the entrance area, and you'd have this promenade before you went out into the balcony. This is how the auditorium looked, viewing it from the stage, and this is how it looked from the rear. You just don't see anything like this anymore in our area, and it's really pretty sad. And many, if not all, theaters were close to being this ornate. This one was really an exceptional one, but the Collingswood was equally as beautiful. The Ritz is still somewhat as it was, but most all of the grand palaces are gone.